Hey y'all! Thought we'd pop in today to talk about sewing on a budget and how you can get started without making your bank account curl up in the corner and cry. Somewhere along the way, the internet convinced us that every hobby requires a dedicated room, $12,000 worth of equipment, matching storage bins, and enough fabric to survive the apocalypse. Thankfully, sewing doesn't actually work that way. You don't have to mortgage your house just to hem a pair of pants or make your first tote bag. In fact, some of the best sewists I know started with the absolute basics and slowly built their collections over time. Today we're going to talk about how to stretch your dollars, avoid expensive beginner mistakes, and prove once and for all that creativity is a whole lot cheaper than impulse shopping. One of the biggest misconceptions about sewing is that you need every gadget ever invented before you can make your first stitch. Walk into a fabric store and suddenly you're surrounded by rotary cutters, specialty rulers, 27 different kinds of presser feet, clips, guides, fancy irons, magnetic pin cushions, and mysterious tools that look like they belong in a dentist's office. It's enough to make a beginner think they forgot to study for an exam. The truth is that you only need a handful of basic supplies to begin. A reliable sewing machine, a decent pair of fabric scissors, some thread, pins, a measuring tape, and a few hand sewing needles will carry you through an amazing number of projects. Everything else can wait until you actually know why you need it, instead of buying it simply because it looks shiny on the shelf. Speaking of sewing machines, don't automatically assume you need the newest model with enough buttons to launch a spaceship. A good secondhand machine can be an absolute treasure. Check thrift shops, garage sales, estate sales, online marketplaces, and community giveaway groups. You'd be amazed how many perfectly good sewing machines spend years collecting dust because someone bought them with the grand ambition of making quilts every weekend and then got distracted by gardening, baking, pottery, or just collecting decorative spoons. Just make sure the machine actually runs, comes with its foot pedal, and stitches properly before handing over your money. Otherwise, you might accidentally purchase what experts call a very attractive paperweight. Now let's talk about fabric, because somehow fabric has the magical ability to multiply itself while simultaneously emptying your wallet. You walk into the store needing 1 meter of cotton, and somehow leave carrying 6 different prints because one had adorable mushrooms, another had tiny foxes wearing scarves, and suddenly you've convinced yourself you'll definitely make matching oven mitts someday. That's how fabric sneaks into your home. When you're learning, though, expensive fabric isn't doing you any favors. Practice with clearance pieces, remnant bins, old bed sheets, curtains, or clothing you no longer wear. If your first project turns into something that looks like it lost a wrestling match with the sewing machine, you'll be much happier sacrificing an old pillowcase than premium linen. Another wonderful way to save money is by taking advantage of the enormous number of free sewing resources available today. There are beginner-friendly patterns and instructional videos and blogs and tutorials covering almost every project imaginable. Whether you're interested in simple bags, pillowcases, aprons, skirts, or little tiny gifts, chances are someone has already created an excellent guide that won't cost you a penny. The only thing you'll need to invest is your time and a little patience. And maybe a willingness to occasionally pause the video because somehow the instructor finished threading the machine in 3 seconds while you're sitting there wondering if thread has developed a personal grudge against you. One of the sneakiest budget traps, though, isn't expensive fabric or even fancy machines. It's buying supplies for imaginary future projects, and we've all done it. You spot 10 beautiful fabrics on sale and immediately begin planning the elegant wardrobe you'll somehow make someday. Fast forward 6 months, and those fabrics are still sitting folded neatly while you're wondering why you can't find room in your sewing area anymore. Buying only what you need for your current project keeps your spending under control and your workspace much less overwhelming. As your skills grow, your collection will naturally grow with you, and every purchase will have a purpose instead of becoming another resident of Mount Stashmore. And frankly, my own Mount Stashmore is a little embarrassing. One of my favorite things about sewing is that it isn't only about creating brand new items. It's about giving old things a second chance. A pair of jeans with a torn knee can easily become shorts. A worn-out shirt might become quilt squares or reusable cleaning cloths. An oversized dress can sometimes be transformed into something you'll actually enjoy wearing again. Even simple repairs like replacing buttons, fixing seams, or hemming pants can save you money while keeping perfectly usable clothing out of the landfill. There's something deeply satisfying about looking at an item and thinking, you know what? You're not finished yet. It's like giving your wardrobe its own little redemption story. As you continue learning, remember that every experienced sewist has a collection of wonderfully awful early projects hidden somewhere. Crooked seams happen. Backwards fabric happens. Sewing sleeves inside out happens more often than people like to admit. At some point, you'll probably sew something together beautifully, admire your work, and then realize you've accidentally stitched the opening completely shut. Congratulations, you've officially joined the club. Those mistakes aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're actually learning. Every crooked stitch teaches your hands a little more. Every project builds confidence. And every laugh at your own mistake makes the hobby a lot more enjoyable. One unexpected benefit of starting on a budget is that it teaches you to become resourceful. Instead of immediately reaching for a new gadget every time you encounter a problem, you begin figuring out creative solutions. You learn how to make the most of what you already own, how to adapt patterns, how to think through challenges instead of shopping your way around them. Those problem-solving skills become incredibly valuable as your sewing adventures become more ambitious. Besides, there's a certain satisfaction in creating something beautiful while knowing you were clever enough to do it without spending a fortune. It's like winning twice. Once with the finished project, and once when you look at your bank statement. The wonderful thing about sewing is that it grows alongside you. Your first projects might be simple, your tools might be modest, and your fabric stash may fit inside one little basket. But that's perfectly okay. Every experienced sewist started somewhere, usually with a few crooked seams, a little confusion, and a lot of enthusiasm. You don't need the fanciest equipment to enjoy the joy of making something with your own hands. All you really need is a willingness to learn, the patience to keep practicing, and perhaps the ability to laugh when your sewing machine decides today's lesson is humility. Well, y'all, that's about it. I'd love to hear what your very first sewing project was, or what budget tip has saved you the most money over the years. Happy stitching!